you have to surround yourself with people who want to rise you up. And that's not always easy, right?
Oh, so you gotta say it again. Someone needs to
surround yourself with people who want to see you rise, that don't want to see you fall, and are willing to stick with you in every single day, no matter what level of success you're feeling. They're already having that vision of looking forward for you. Well, in the education world, what I say to the teachers I work with is, you are their ticket.
There is something special inside you.
Welcome to GNG Podcast with your host, speaker, best-selling author, Chaz Jackson.
Yo, what's going on, kings and queens? It's your boy Chaz Jackson coming back to you once again, representing GNG Gift and a Gift. Hey, I personally want to take the time to tell each and every one of you, thank you for giving me your eyes and your ears once again. It's great to dive deep into some inspiration that I pray will plant like a seed in your mind and assist you in becoming a greater version of yourself. So you know that we live by this. We are all gifted differently to make a difference. I know there are tons of difference makers that's listening to me right now, whether it's on Facebook, YouTube, one of the podcast platforms. I'm so excited you're with us. Go ahead, share this out to anyone that you feel like is going to be able to resonate with Queen Andrea. She is in the building. As we dive deep on the theme, you are the ticket. You certainly are in those young people's lives, kings and queens. She's going to dissect that, talk about her new book on the show today. So I'm excited to get her in front of you, but I want to go over the mission statement of this platform. It is to provide tips and techniques for young men as we strive to grow in personal development. And I want you to take a daily challenge with me of becoming a passionate visionary who is determined to leave a legacy for themselves by adopting unwavering life values and serving others in an area of gifting led by God. So that's the daily challenge that we're taking. Go ahead, get your pen and paper ready. You're in for a treat. I'm going to read off this short bio. We're going to get Andrea in the building on the show. Andrea Bitner is a wife, mother, ELL teacher, literacy coach, and reading specialist located in Philadelphia area. She is also a first-time author, Take Me Home. She is a champion for all stakeholders in the education community and looks forward to continuing to spread the word that those learning a second language should always be viewed as an asset and never, family, a handicap. And she is on the GNG podcast, crushing it on this episode, getting ready to. Are you ready to get it, Queen Andrea?
I am. Thanks for having me today.
Thank you for being here. And the audience is so excited to learn more about you. You know, I know you're a wife, you're a mother, you're a teacher, a literacy coach, a reading specialist, doing some amazing things with your life, impacting lives as we progress through the rest of 2021. It's crazy. It's already October already. So, but I know you're doing some amazing things with your new book. So could you just share with the audience, where did all that come from? Just a little bit going into your story of how you got to where you are right now in 2021.
Sure. So I started off 21 years ago as an educator right outside of Philadelphia, and was hired over the weekend from college to jump into the education world, and was quickly assigned high school students in English. And so as I started to work with those kids, I was given the toughest kids in the building, right? So I was one of those ladies that loved school, obviously, became a teacher, loved the field of education. But here walked in these amazing kids who hated school. And I was like, all right, I don't know about this. You know, I didn't know students like that when I was a student. So what am I going to do? And I quickly figured out that they didn't know how to read. And I think that's one of the reasons why they hated school so much. And so I went back to school pretty quickly and got a master's in reading and became a reading specialist and started some work there. And as I got into that field, I started to work with 1 or 2 groups a day that were English language learners. And I really started to become curious about how to train to work with people who were either born here or not, who wanted to learn how to read, write, speak, and listen to English. So I kind of had that job hand in hand with being a reading specialist and being what we call an EL, English language learner, or English language teacher. And I moved into that world a few years after working as a reading specialist with high school kids, middle school kids, and elementary kids. So I worked with kids in every grade level. And it's really a joy. And what I kind of learned from that was no matter what age they are, all the kids and families and parents are either just little kids in big bodies, or, older kids that are just trying to figure it out. And I think that through that experience so far, I learned that they're all looking for the same three things. They just want to feel respected, they want to feel accepted, and they want to feel admired. And if I can give those three things to them, no matter what age of student I work with, they'll work well for me. And so that's something I found that's been pretty successful. So where I am now, after working, into my 21st years, I work exclusively with English language learners in grades 1 through 8. We have kids through all different experiences. We have kids that were born here. We have kids who were adopted. We have kids who are exchange students. We have kids that waited 10 years for their visa and came later. We have kids who mom and dad set up shop and they stayed with their family for a little bit. So we have lots of different kids and lots of different experiences. We have kids across the border who I get the privilege of working with.
Awesome, and I can tell you're really passionate about it. And
it's fun.
Looking at this episode, I'm sure you're just pouring out with joy, and it definitely seems like you love what you do. You love giving value to others, and yeah, thank you so much, man. That's very inspiring to hear how you are, growing and you have more clarity, focus, and consistency on what you're doing, and teaching it to others, teaching it to those young people. And yeah, that's really good stuff. And I'm very eager to hear more about your book, Take Me Home. And what was that born out of?
Sure.
Can you talk a little bit more about that?
I can. So about 6 years ago, I was working at the high school at that time with about 40 English language learners from all over the world. And there was one particular family that I worked with, the Lopez family. And there were 7 of them. And I had taught over time all 7 of their nieces, nephews, and children. And there were all boys and 1 girl. And I spent time working with them from the time they learned their very first words in English. They were level 1 kids that had come over and spoke little English when they first came here, to watching them cross that graduation stage as proficient, bilingual, amazing kids and moving forward in life from there. And about a year or so after the last young lady, Nancy, graduated, I was teaching in school one day at my school, and there were some helicopters flying outside. We are in an area where there are a lot of train tracks. And I thought, I hope they're okay. Like, I see a lot of helicopters today. I don't know what's going on. And my principal came down about an hour later to let me know that one of my students had died. And it was Nancy. And Nancy was the youngest and only female, like I said, of the family. So at that time, they were struggling because there were no bilingual officers in the area to share with the family what had happened to which one of their children. So the family was notified that one of their children had been hit by the train. She was hit by the Acela and clipped from behind by accident when she was crossing the right side of the tracks. Wow. And she had some headphones on, and I don't think that she heard it. When we saw some information later, it looked like she didn't see it coming. And so the family stood on those tracks for a long time, waiting and calling all of their children and trying to figure out which one of their children had passed away.
Wow.
And so I went through that experience with our EL family, I call them at the time, with all those 40 students and all of the family members. And it was a pretty traumatic experience for that community because they were very close-knit and tight-knit. They stood up for each other. They helped each other. They worked with each other on school, outside of school. Nancy's father's a pastor, so he had a huge church community that was supporting him. And it took us a few weeks to pay her due respects and bury her. And through that time, when we were planning the funeral, I had to do a short talk and presentation. And so I wrote this short poem at the time, and it was called Take Me Home. And it was about Nancy's coming over to the U.S. And so I kind of went through that experience with all these awesome kids, and I kind of tucked it away, right? So I had that on a piece of paper, and a couple of years later, I saw it one day and I was like, you know what? Maybe somebody out there would like to hear this story. Maybe it would benefit them to hear this poem. And that's all it was at the time, was a poem. And so I sent it out to some publishers, and lo and behold, about 6 months later, one publisher got back to me and they said, hey, Andrea, we really like your poem, but we think you can do more. We don't just want you to write a poem. We want you to write a book. And we want you to take about 6 months more to do it. And if we like it, we're going to take it on and we're going to publish it. So I started to really think about that. And I was like, all right, well, I don't want to just tell her story, because I had all these amazing kids. Now they're in their like young 20s, young 30s. And I said, I want to tell all their stories because they're all so different, but so important. So what I did was I took those 6 months and I went back and I interviewed all of these students that I had that are now young, successful, bilingual adults living here in the US. And I asked them the question that I felt like most people don't consider. And that is, we as educators or, colleagues or business partners or friends, we know you speak different languages. We know your data. We know your family, your culture, your background, those very surface things. But now that you're a young bilingual person living here in this country, and you can look back as a young adult and reflect on your experiences in school, what was that really like for you? What was that really like to be that resilient and that courageous and that dedicated to growing yourself every single day and getting up even when you didn't want to become successful here in the US? And so I had all these questions. It came to me one night in a dream, and I woke up and I just tore into a piece of paper and I wrote all these questions down. And from those conversations, I was able to develop a chapter dedicated to each of them. And there are 12 of them. But I was able to tell the story through a first person point of view. So the story is told through their eyes as that young person. And we changed their names to names of strength. So I didn't want to just put, their first names. So there are names like plunge and fuel and grit and embrace and surge and volt and charge. And so names of strength to show that dynamic based on each conversation that we had. And I was able to weave Nancy's story through it. So that's this true story of 12 young, amazing bilingual people who want to have a perspective to share with all of its readers. And our main mission is to teach people or remind them that when you meet someone who's learning a second language, please treat that time period in their life like they're more of an asset than a handicap, because that's what's really important to help them navigate that time.
Wow. Thank you so much for diving deeper on the whole concept of Take Me Home. I look forward to reading it, and it sounds like definitely an inspiration. And gosh, so many lives are going to be changed through that, and so many other, bilingual kids or working on the whole aspect of learning English is going to take something from this. Does it come in different languages, or is it just English?
So it does. So what we did was we printed the book in English, but in the same book, the story then repeats in Spanish.
Oh, nice.
So it can access both readers. We hope one day it will be English and French and English and Russian and English and Twi, etc. So we hope to add to it, but we really felt like that was important for a lot of reasons. We wanted to show people what it might feel like to take a peek at a second language they hadn't seen before. And, as you look at that Spanish version in the second half of the book, it's like, oh, could I do that? How long could I last here looking at this? It was important to also, I felt, honor Nancy and her parents, who are bilingual young people themselves. And I wanted her parents to be able to read about her in a way that was effective and respectful. And they were actually part of the story. And I interviewed them and was able to share Nancy's story, and we call her Shine.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Sure. And the theme of this episode is "You Are the Ticket." What does that mean to you when you hear that?
I feel like, in reading lots of works in personal development, everyone has someone in their life when they made a huge change that was willing to do the work, and not just on the good days, but on the bad days too, with someone that they had met to help them overcome whatever it is they needed, slowly or quickly, to rise to their true purpose in life. And I feel like in education,
I like that.
In education, in the business world, wherever you may go, you have to surround yourself with people who want to rise you up. And that's not always easy, right?
Oh,
So
you got to say it again. Someone needs to
surround
hear
yourself with people who want to see you rise, that don't want to see you fall, and are willing to stick with you in every single day, no matter what level of success you're feeling. They're already having that vision of looking forward for you. Well, in the education world, what I say to the teachers I work with is, you are their ticket. They come to school every single day and they're looking to you for something. Maybe it's because your class is funny. Maybe it's because your class is safe. Maybe it's because you provide a relaxing environment for them. Maybe you inspire them. Maybe you're the place that they come to eat that day. Maybe they just want to have a conversation. Maybe they admire something about you. There's so many factors, but you have to realize that when you signed up to become an educator in this world, you took the opportunity to become the ticket for all of those eyes and ears that are sitting in front of you, the ticket to something. Whatever that might be for each of those kids is different, but that's what you signed up for.
You are the ticket, whoever's listening to this. And I know there's a teacher, educator, parent that has took that in. That is an application point right there, is understanding that, hey, you are a hope giver. You can speak life into one of these young individuals' dreams, goals, ambitions. It can be a small one or a big one, but you are the ticket. I love that concept. I love that concept. And whoever is listening, I hope you wrote that down. If you didn't, you can pause this episode, get your pen and paper. And it's been so much value that's been shared so far by Andrea. And I know there's a teacher, coach, or parent that's listening right now, Andrea, and they're wanting to know, is there a tip or technique of encouragement that you can give to a student who's in the process right now of learning a second language? And they could be struggling right now, going kind of through the ideas of frustration, sadness, maybe even some depression. Maybe they're feeling like they're not catching on with the rest of the crowd as they're transitioning to their new environment and circumstances. So from that standpoint, is there some encouragement that comes to mind or technique you use to help?
Yes, I think that, one theme in the conversations that came out from these wonderful young people in this book, and something I took away from it, is that the one piece they need is a navigator. They need someone to help them navigate all of these new systems. And that's inside and outside of school. So as a coach or as a parent or as a teacher or a business colleague, they're going to have a lot of questions and a lot of information that they need you to help them figure out. And that could be from something as, what is the school system here? This is very strange for me. I just received actually 2 new students yesterday from Guatemala, a pair of twin girls. And they are what we call our level 1 students. They know a few sentences in English. And so I just taught them today. And our first conversations were about survival language. What's your name? What's your address? Where are you from? Can I go to the bathroom? Simple things that you would take for granted because you have that communication piece. You're not masked, right? You can have those conversations. So right. when you meet people who are learning the language, take the time to figure out what tools they're going to need to navigate the system that you have them in. And be considerate of the fact that they could be very different from what you know. For example, they went to school from 7 a.m. to 12 noon every day, and then they went home for lunch. So their thoughts were, can I go home for lunch today? So things like that, I think are important to consider. And I always say, when you meet someone who speaks a different language, ask a lot of questions. Especially when you're working with our youth, it's, did they go to school? Was it formal schooling? What was that structure like there? If they were born here, what languages do their parents prefer? Because you need to be able to communicate with their parents in a way that's effective. So you want to start to assume nothing. I always say assume nothing and ask a lot of questions, because then you can get the movie instead of the snapshot. You never want to base your opinion of somebody on a snapshot conversation.
Yeah.
We need the movie. We need the movie. And I always say to look for that.
Really good stuff. I love it. So navigation, and you hit on a really big point of not assuming things. How often do we fall in that trap? It's like, they'll pick it up, or you know, we can draw the line and plug in the blank of circumstances, situations that we just kind of miss things. But I love it. Asking questions. That's one of the biggest things along my journey is not being afraid to ask those questions. A lot of times, you know, we can get into the whole mindset of if I do ask a question, that's going to make me look like I'm, you know, I do not have the intellect to you know, be that leader or whatever the case may be. They're going to look down upon me. But asking questions is actually a sign of strength, right? And what you agree is you're showing that individual that you care for them, you value them, and you truly want to serve them. So really good stuff, Andrew. And I know there's someone's listening right now. They're like, man, I want to find out how I can get the book Take Me Home. I want to be in front of more of Andrea's work and what she has coming up moving forward to 2021 on into 2022. So can you share your contact information? Also, any other encouragement that you love to leave with the GNG audience here?
Yes. So you can follow us on a few social media outlets. On Instagram and Twitter, we are active. It is at Andrea Bitner Books. You can directly message us there or put some commentary and how you're feeling about the book after you take a look at it. You can also join our Facebook group, which is also Andrea Bitner Books. So there are 3 social media outlets you can find us and find our story. We post readers, reactions, questions, connections, and we've been having a great time hearing about all these ideas that people are having and gaining perspective on from reading their story. And all the people in the book are also a part of those groups. So they're actually getting to love seeing all of these different connections that people are making as well. We can offer the book to you in lots of platforms. It's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, the publishing website of Austin Macaulay. My mom just called me. Apparently it's on Target as well. I didn't know it was in Target, but you can go online and get it at Target as well. So there's a lot of venues for people to access us. And we're just looking to spread this message and spread this work and continue to encourage people. Everybody needs encouragement, especially during this time we've had over the last few years.
Yes, definitely need encouragement. And, you know, one of my favorite quotes is about Isaac Newton. And he says, if I seem further than others by standing on the shoulders of giants, I'm just thinking of all these kids that's able to stand on your shoulders, your community, your educators that you're a part of through this whole journey, through Taking Me Home. And they're going to be able to see life differently because you are the ticket, right? So I really like that, man. I'm going to have to get your permission to use that one, everyone.
Yes, absolutely.
Really
Absolutely. And that's what they need, right? You need somebody to be able to see what we say through the telescope instead of the microscope, right? So a lot of people have that. I read that in John Gordon's work. A lot of people have that microscope thinking. And then what they forget sometimes is that telescope thinking. You've got to see the big picture and your purpose behind it in order to micro in on what the things are I need to do today to get there. But you have to be willing to keep that big picture in mind because that's what makes it worth it.
Yeah. And with hearing you say that, Les Brown had popped in my head. He said, it's hard to see the big picture if you're inside of the frame. So
I like that.
So you are the person outside of these young giants frames and you're speaking life into them. You are a true hope giver and you've really inspired GNG podcast today with this episode. Has been so fruitful, so much great information. I want to challenge whoever's listening right now. Comment, let us know what tip or technique you're taking from this talk on the theme, You Are the Ticket, that you're going to take the daily challenge on implementing. I challenge you with one. John Maxwell says 1% equals growth. So just 1%, that 1% taking that daily challenge on making your life, the rest of your life, the best of your life. Right. So yes, thank you so much, Andrea. And this has been an amazing conversation.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. And I'm gonna lead us out. I want each and every one of you to stay up with GNG. More episodes coming soon. I want you to do 2 things for me. Keep that crown on your heart. And please remember this. We are God's echo. I love each and every one of you. Peace.